lot of Trump critics that have actually been praising this peace deal and praising the work that he's done. In fact, Time magazine, look at the cover. It says his triumph with a picture of Donald Trump. And then some Democrats, Lawrence, have been praising President Trump for the peace deal as well.
I was shocked by this. You got Chuck Schumer, who says, I commend the enormous advocacy of the tireless hostage families, President Trump, his administration, and all who helped make this moment happen. Kamala Harris said that I commend the leaders and partners whose efforts made this agreement possible, including the president and his team. And then Bill Clinton said, President Trump and his administration, Qatar, and other regional actors deserve a great credit for keeping everyone engaged until the agreement was reached. Charlie.
And then former Secretary of State and former First Lady Hillary Clinton also had this to say.
It's a really significant first step, and I really commend President Trump and his administration, as well as Arab leaders in the region.
But, of course, that's not to say that all Democrats were ready with appropriate praise for President Trump. You had some that were either silent or trying to give credit to the previous administration, to Joe Biden, claiming that he deserved credit. Former President Biden posting on X, the road to this deal was not easy. My administration worked relentlessly to bring hostages home, get relief to Palestinian civilians, and to end the war. I commend President Trump and his team for their work to get a renewed ceasefire deal over the finish line. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett adding about Trump, raising hell at home and then pretending to be the president of peace is diabolical.
Look, hostages came home, and so I think it deserves praise from both sides. A peace deal has been struck. Humanitarian aid will be sent into Gaza. There's a commitment to rebuilding Gaza, so it helps both sides here. Blinken, who was with the Biden administration, posted on X, in part, it's good that President Trump adopted and built on the plan the Biden administration developed. So Donald Trump was asked about that on Air Force One. He said, everyone knows it's a joke. Look, they did such a bad job. This should never have happened. If a decent president were in, you wouldn't have had the Russia-Ukraine war. This is bad policy by Biden and Obama. But then he went on to say this. This is the day that people across the region and around the world have been working, striving, hoping, and praying for. With the historic agreement we have just signed, those prayers of millions have finally been answered. Together, we have achieved the impossible. Together, we have achieved the impossible.
I want to say I appreciate the Democrats that are reasonable.
Me too.
And acknowledge the obvious. I mean, if you can't acknowledge this, then we're lost. We're just lost. You can't debate issues with those type of people. You can't have civility with those type of people because they just won't acknowledge certain things. So for Kamala Harris, Chuck Schumer, and Bill Clinton, even the former secretary, you did the right thing. But the talking point that there was a deal in place that they were working on within the Biden administration, and that somehow Donald Trump just finished it off.
Now come the days of the king.
I was saying, wait a second, where is this going? It goes from Lord of the Rings to Independence Day to Star Wars, and then back. And well done, Jerry. It's good. It was a meme so good it was bad, and then was good again. And so I very much appreciate the Jedi scene at the very end there with Charlie. Whew, baby. Okay, so we are cooking today. You might notice a slightly different studio, very rustique. No, we are not on the Tucker Carlson Show. We are inside of Washington, D.C., our friends at the Conservative Partnership Institute, loaning us their studio today, along with the Trump bobbleheads behind me here. And let's see, what else do we have? a old wooden ship, right? And look at that, a Charlie Kirk Turning Point book. We are in Washington, D.C. for Charlie Kirk's Medal of Freedom ceremony at the White House. We'll also have somebody joining the program today who has brought a lot of freedom to the world, the Trump family, on the show today. Eric Trump joining us live today, Tuesday, October 14th, 2025. It is our great honor to be able to talk about peace, because peace, of course, through strength, is a Christian virtue. It is something that we should dynamically be seeking. It is something that has been brought to the world and has brought Trump's enemies low. President Trump's greatest detractors are now getting down on their knees and praising the man, and it is an amazing thing to see. Again, Eric Trump will be joining us to chat with us about it. We're going to be remembering Charlie Kirk today as President Trump awards him the Presidential Medal of Freedom. And we're going to have a lot of takeaways from that. Look forward to locking in to the channels, lots of updates throughout the day. It's going to be a beautiful ceremony. And ladies and gentlemen, it again is our great honor to be with you today. My name is Benny Johnson, and this is The Benny Show. The sponsor of this program, American Financing, can ensure that you don't get stuck in slavery. Who wants to be in slavery? Nobody wants to be in slavery, okay? Nobody wants to be in slavery. President Trump delivering hostages yesterday, right? And I guess you could technically say that's a form of slavery. Nobody wants that. It's a bad thing throughout all time. There are different styles of slavery. You want the elimination of slavery to sin, slavery to immorality, slavery in the physical sense, slavery in the financial sense, slavery in the debt sense. Ladies and gentlemen, credit card debt spiraling, of course, out of control in this nation. It is a huge crisis, not only for our federal government here in Washington, D.C., but also for the American family that are trapped in spirals of credit card debt. Get out of them with my friends at American Financing. Call today to unlock the equity in your home and make sure that you can pay off those high interest credit card debt and that you can, get free, ladies and gentlemen, freedom. Call American Financing today at 888-528-1219. That's 888-528-1219, americanfinancing.net/Benny. Okay, Chuck Schumer, Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden lead the praise of Donald Trump. Oh, what a glorious world. Is it because Hillary Clinton is scared of getting indicted? That is the real question. I don't know, but Hillary Clinton has been praising Donald Trump. Bill Clinton has been praising Donald Trump. Joe Biden praising Donald Trump in name, by the way. Not saying we're just so happy about this result. They're saying it in name. Now, Barack Obama, in case you're wondering where the real agitation and the real deep state puppet master is, it is Barack Obama who is the one who refuses to call out Trump by name and say, we want to honor President Trump for this monumental achievement. Here's Bill Clinton. Let's go ahead and read some of these posts. They are remarkable. And ladies and gentlemen, then we will go right off the top to Eric Trump. And I appreciate you sticking with us today as we had a slightly late start here. I'm getting some technical errors hammered out at CPI, and we thank them for accommodating us on our schedule today. My statement on the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, says Bill Clinton from the back of Jeffrey Epstein's jet. The horrors of October 7th and the attack on Israel reignited result unbearable human loss, hard to rationalize. I'm grateful that the ceasefire has taken place. A desperately needed that desperately needed aid has been given to flow into Gaza. Good. President Trump and his administration, Qatar, and other regional actors deserve great credit for keeping everyone engaged until the agreement was reached. Now, Israel and Hamas, with the support of the United States and the region and the world, must try to return this fragile moment lasting peace. I believe that they can get us there. Didn't you deliver a lasting peace, Bill? Weren't you the ones who signed the big whatever accords, whatever accords that, of course, don't matter at all because they are steeped in corruption and graft and a lack of strength from America and from the people that have pretty much broken everything. But either way, he's naming Trump. Well done. Moving on to Joe Biden. Here we go. Let's run the tables here. I am deeply grateful and relieved that this day has come, says Joe Biden, through obviously an interpreter. For the last living 20 hostages that have been through unimaginable hell and are finally reunited in their families and loved ones. The road to this deal was not easy, says Joe Biden. My administration's worked relentlessly to bring hostages home, get relief to Palestinian civilians, end the war, and I commend President Trump and his team for their work and renewed ceasefire deal to finish this and get it over the line. There it is. I commend President Trump. Way to go. Way to go. Maybe Donald Trump, just a thought, maybe Donald Trump will change and swap out the portrait of Joe Biden from the auto pen at the White House to just maybe Joe Biden using the auto pen, maybe Joe Biden punching the button on the auto pen. I don't know. I'm not sure. We'll be at the White House today. I will beg for a tour of the auto pen. I will beg for a tour of it. I want to see the auto pen portrait at the White House. Nonetheless, well done, Joe Biden. And just a critically important note here on Joe Biden, and again, at the expense of trying too hard to prove the difference between us and them, between the men and the animals. Let me state this very clearly as to why. Please put up the tweet, ALX. I prayed for Joe Biden this weekend. And Eric Trump, who will be joining me in 1 second, did so as well. What is the difference? There is something bigger than politics. Humanity is bigger than politics. God created humans. God said his first command to human beings in the first book of Genesis, go be fruitful and multiply. That doesn't mean kill each other. That doesn't mean send each other death threats. That doesn't mean send bullets through President Trump's head, Charlie Kirk's head. We saw that all happen within a year. This doesn't mean send bullets into church. This is total evil. God created us in his image. God has created all of us with the unique stamp of the creator. We are all created equal, as the founding documents say. But God gave us purpose and meaning, and all of us have a different purpose and a different meaning. Now, I don't like Joe Biden from the mortal plane, from a political standpoint. I think Joe Biden was the worst president of my lifetime, for sure. Like, that's not even close. He was the most destructive president of my lifetime. From a policy perspective, I can argue that all day, and my voice has cracked trying to argue against that. And we won in 2024. And so great, right. But then there's a different level. There's a spiritual level, a human level, where I don't wish bad things to happen to Joe Biden. Now, Joe Biden has terminal cancer, stage 5 metastasized to his bones. Joe Biden is entering a very painful, very harsh stage of radiation treatment. A lot of people enter this stage of radiation treatment, and not a lot of people get out. I've watched my own family members do this, and maybe you have too. And I prayed for Joe Biden, because this is on a spiritual plane. Do you understand? There are different planes. Yes, I fought Joe Biden on the mortal plane of politics. Yes, I did everything in my power to ensure that Joe Biden wasn't president, and to explain why he's a bad president. But Joe Biden is a individual who was created by God for a purpose and was created by our Lord and Savior. And I'm not going to fight God on that. And so when something bad happens to Joe Biden, I pray for him, okay? And I pray that his days are painless, all right? And that's the difference. That's the difference between us and them. And don't ever let that difference, don't ever be the people that are calling for bad things to happen. It will never happen on this show, and it should never happen in you, because that's in your heart. You're going to be judged for that. That's something bad. But by doing that, you actually do something bad to yourself. And it's self-corruption. That's self-loathing, wishing that on somebody else. That weighs heavy on your soul. So it's a beautiful thing to watch all the Democrats suck up their pride and praise President Trump. On the flip side, when something bad happens, Joe Biden gets terminal cancer, say a prayer for him, because he's just a human being like the rest of us. And he's imperfect like the rest of us. And so just, prove the difference between us and the animals. God does this in Genesis. He makes the animals, he makes man. He makes man in his own image. He makes us different. And he makes us all with a purpose. What is your purpose exactly? God doesn't need a Benny, right? God doesn't need, God doesn't need anything. God created. He created me for a purpose. He created you for a purpose. Are you living out that purpose today? What is that? President Trump said something remarkable recently, saying just 24 hours ago that he's not sure if he's heaven bound. Do we have that clip, Alex? If not, I want it. He says, I'm not sure that I'm heaven bound. Well, I got to tell you, man, that is a beautifully humble thing to say. And I want to talk about it with Eric Trump, who I'm checking in with my producers. It's locked and loaded. Okay, great. Let's get on over to Eric. But it's a it was a fascinating thing that Trump said. Do we have the clip? If we have the clip, then perhaps we'll play it. And I'd love to get Eric's response to this. My takeaway on this is very simple. None of us deserve to go to heaven. It's actually perfect Christian doctrine, what Trump says. He says, I'm not sure I'm heaven bound. Well, none of us actually deserve to go to heaven. It's actually beautiful Christian doctrine. President Trump saying, I'm fallen just like everyone. And, we need grace. But then Trump says, I've delivered peace in the earth. I've delivered peace for a lot of people. Christ is the Prince of Peace. Peace be with you, says Christ, after he's resurrected from the dead. After he conquers death, Christ says, peace be with you. And ladies and gentlemen, here is President Trump talking about what will happen next in his life if he's going to heaven. And then we're going to have Eric Trump join the show. Let's just listen to this.
A little cute. I don't think there's anything going to get me in heaven. Okay, I really don't. I think I'm not maybe heaven bound. I may be in heaven right now as we fly in Air Force One. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to make heaven, but I've made life a lot better for a lot of people. And as an example, had the election of 2020 not been rigged, you would have millions of people living just in Russia, Ukraine alone. That would have never happened, and it didn't happen for 4 years. And I knew Putin very well. It was the apple of his eye. All the things I've said would have never happened. We had an incompetent administration. We had an incompetent president. And because of a crooked election, millions of people are dead. And by the way, the Israeli thing was much harder to get settled because of the past administration.
Ladies and gentlemen, responding to this, President Trump's son, Eric Trump, live now. Eric, welcome to the program. I know this is a massive day for you. I really appreciate your time. You are launching your book today, and we have the link in the description. I want to tell everyone we have the links in the description. But since that made so much news, and since we've had such a historic 24 hours for your family, the family that brought the world peace, I want to get your reaction to that. President Trump saying he's not sure he's heaven bound.
Well, Benny, it's hard to believe that, I finally think the siege was worth it, if that makes sense, right? Everything they did to us was worth it yesterday when I saw what he did. And make no mistake, he is heaven bound. He's probably too humble in a certain way to say that. I can say that as a son, because I've seen the hand of God on him for a very long time, guiding him through the most unthinkable, dark process. And then we get to a day like yesterday, which is, was so beautiful. But he is heaven bound. And I can tell you, maybe the one thing he does that might have, influenced heaven is, I think there's a lot less people going to heaven, meaning they're going to heaven slower because he stopped the death and destruction around the world. I've personally witnessed him stop wars where you would have had young men primarily, but young men, young women getting killed, getting mortared, getting shelled. I saw it with Cambodia. I saw it with Thailand. I mean, you've seen so many conflicts where, you saw it with India. You saw it with Pakistan. I mean, you saw conflicts there. And every single one of the prime ministers of those countries and the leaders of those countries have come out and said, listen, it would have been very, very different had Trump not gotten involved. In fact, you had the head of I think, Pakistan yesterday. I'm sure you saw that, where he said, listen, here are two nuclear superpowers, and it could have been really bad. And it was getting very bad. And all of a sudden, Donald Trump, President Trump put an end to it. And so hopefully he slowed down the journey to heaven for a lot of people, in that they'll spend more time on this earth and they'll get there. But they won't get there for a number of years because he stopped, innocent young kids from absolutely getting run through a meat grinder unnecessarily for no reason whatsoever. And that in itself will get my father to heaven. And believe me, if he wasn't heaven bound, he wouldn't have been alive after Butler. If he wasn't heaven bound, that flag wouldn't have folded up like a perfect angel right above his head. If he wasn't heaven bound, if he wasn't meant for this purpose, he wouldn't have beaten Hillary. We wouldn't have beaten Hillary. We wouldn't have got through the landmine of what Under Siege was, where they tried to destroy us in every way, shape, or form. They tried to suck the breath out of us. They tried to suck the money out of us. They tried to suck the voice out of us. They did everything humanly possible to destroy us. And yet here we are, and we have this amazing peace, deal on Charlie Kirk's birthday. I can't tell you how many things are lining up. I mean, think about the fact that this book came out on Charlie Kirk's birthday, on the same day as we have peace in the Middle East. I mean, so many different factors are all coming together at once in the most unthinkable, unbelievable journey. You couldn't have scripted this. You could not, the wildest author could not have scripted this book and the trials and tribulations and twists and turns to get to where we are today. And look how much better humanity and our world is. We're saving Christianity. We're saving God. We're saving the family unit. We're saving this nation. I mean, DEI is out the window, Benny. I mean, you no longer have Colin Kaepernick kneeling for the national, for the national anthem. You no longer have, a Budweiser going woke as hell, or all of this is dead. And yet, what do we have? We have a return to people going to church. We have a return to people, valuing their children and valuing society and believing in the white picket fence and what the American dream represents and what the American dream stands for, and American exceptionalism and peace around the world, and that people can coexist with one another without having to, pick up arms and destroy each other for no reason whatsoever, other than, incompetent and, and egotistical governments. It's a beautiful time, and he will go to heaven for all of that. God absolutely guided this journey in ways that, you'll learn and understand. I mean, it's a big part of the story, but he was there the entire time.
Just a quick follow-up to that just beautiful answer that I think is going to make a lot of news, frankly, Eric. I can already hear our producers packaging that one up, because that is a beautiful answer. It's like you've almost written the book about that answer, and you've thought through all of this. Again, Under Siege, the Amazon link in the description, out today. Eric, as a follow-up to what you just said, the nature, I know that you are a Christian, the nature of God is to create. Christ is called the Prince of Peace. Peace be with you is something that is often said as like a godly greeting. But the nature of Satan is to steal, kill, and destroy. If you want to see Satan's work in the world, just look at who is stealing, who is killing, and who is destroying.
That's right.
Now, everybody calls Trump, everyone calls your father some of the most evil names on earth. I don't really want to repeat them, frankly, here. But if you look at his nature, if you look at what he's actually doing, if you look at his actions, not the libels and slanders that have been leveled against him, you'll see that the fruit, the actions with which maketh the man, sets your family up to be possibly the family that brought world peace, actually, to the globe in our time. And it is an incredible series of accomplishments, and it's an incredible series of creation. You guys have created, and you've also brought peace, and it's wonderful. And I think a lot of people are like, including Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, Bill Clinton, many Democrats are just eating their words today and deciding that now is the time. We can't help it anymore. We're just going to praise President Trump. It's got to be remarkable to witness from your position.
Well, I think, and actually, even to take that step further, I mean, I think he set us all up for this, right? I mean, and I go through this in the book, right? I mean, obviously, my father was larger than life, great personality, has backbone, was always that creator. I mean, that's what he did. The only thing he's ever done in his life, his entire premise of his life was creating, fixing, turning things that are broken around. He did that better than anybody. But I truly also believe that God set up this whole journey. I mean, listen, what the hell was a business guy doing going into reality TV, right? 14 years of a reality TV show. Bear with me, because I'll get to why that's relevant. But he made my father a household name to all of America in the most unlikely avenue. Sure enough, I'm on the last 7 seasons of The Apprentice. We were used to seeing that red dot, turn on in the most high pressure situations where you had to perform. And then sure enough, 3 years later, 4 years later, we were being cast onto the public stage in this country when he had no one else around him to support him. I mean, Benny, there was no one. I mean, it was my father, it was Don, myself, there was a couple of people in the campaign, and that was it. It was our voice, and that was it. It's before the people saw that he was doing well and decided to, jump on the winning team, right? I mean, we had no senators, we had no congressmen, we had no spokespeople. I mean, we had so few people other than the American people who believed. And we went out and we fought as a family. Without The Apprentice, right, that couldn't have happened. We wouldn't have, without the kind of the business world and growing up in this rough tumble industry, without the backbone, maybe a little bit of just genetics, I just don't think he could have gotten there. I don't think we could have gotten there, right? So it's actually the most unlikely kind of remarkable journey that you could have ever possibly imagined, where, certain industries, certain opportunities were all put there, but that just further perpetuated and kind of guided this cycle toward his eventual greatness and toward American greatness. And it is David and Goliath. I mean, you're talking, biblically, but it is David and Goliath. I mean, we were clearly David. Goliath was the entire system. That was the weaponized government of the United States. That's Goliath. The Goliath was the weaponized media. 98% of the media coverage we had, was negative, and somehow we won. How is that possible? If that's not biblical, frankly, I don't know what it is. And I think my father was also the imperfect man, right? And we were all imperfect, and that's exactly how the Bible worked. So oftentimes the imperfect person, have multiple wives, right? I mean, people were the unconventional, imperfect person was the person who was actually always chosen to actually save kind of humanity, right? And come in and win the day. And I very much think that they set my father up, and my father was set up in that way. And I can't tell you how many times God comes into the equation throughout Under Siege, throughout the book, but just throughout my life, and also in ways that you feel but might not see. Benny, I can't tell you how many times we were down and out. $600 million judgment on the family. They're about to start ripping the name off of buildings. They're trying to seize our assets, Letitia James. And then sure enough, just this little avenue, you see light, and there's kind of a part in the sea. And all of a sudden you start going this way and everything reverses itself. I mean, it's the most you could not script the path. You could not script this voyage. You could not script the twists and turns. You could not script how many times we were down and out and they had us by the neck, and we somehow managed to just barely escape and come back and win the entire thing. And you could not imagine that the guy was serving French fries last year, exactly 1 year ago today. And yesterday he created Middle East peace. I mean, the guy was literally riding a dump truck a year ago today. By the way, in between court appearances where they're trying to throw him and me in jail, and yesterday he's on the world stage, literally, with Middle East peace. It's a hell of a story. It couldn't be made up other than somebody, looking down from above who's designing this whole architecture of this plan and what he wants for humanity.
I mean, it's nothing short of a miraculous. I'll be an old man, Eric, and I'll be telling my grandkids this story. I mean, it'll be something we all lived it. And every person watching this stream right now, thousands and thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people will be able to tell you, no matter where we're speaking in arenas, and announcements soon to come on that, no matter where we're speaking and no matter what, everyone to a man will raise their hand and say they remember where they were when your dad was shot. Yeah. They remember that exact second. They can tell you the color of the room, right? They can tell you the time of day.
But it's why it was important for me to put this all down, right? It's
exactly.
Listen, you understand revisionist history better than anybody. You understand that the demon forces out there will try and rewrite this story in their own way. You understand that they're going to do everything they can to prevent people from linking all these puzzle pieces together in the big grid that it was, which is the corruption of Obama and the corruption of Biden and the total destruction and weaponization of an entire system. And that's why I had to line it up, right? I mean, you had to understand the progression of events and the evilness that sought to bring down the greatest movement in political history. And they will, if you go to Wikipedia, they will try and rewrite that story. If you go to the textbooks, they will try and rewrite that story. And that's why the story has to live on, and this fight has to live on. It's so important for kind of future teachings, and I think it's so important to the fabric of this nation moving forward.
So just really quickly, could you jump into the book and can you give us like a little bit of a page turn? Yeah. Like what was that moment like, Eric, for you? I know you've gotten the question many times, but since the book is just out, I know there are some major revelations in the book. Under Siege, out today, but perhaps you could give us a page turn.
Well, listen, I think it's a story of a father and how we were raised. Very entrepreneurial book. All right. The creation of a business and how we did it and how we did as a family. It was certainly the fight of the David and Goliath, as I said before, the fight against good and evil and how they kind of tried to destroy a nation and destroy a movement. And that's how you can overcome against all evil. I mean, it's all of those four books in one. And I think it's an incredibly aspirational book for a mother or father, raising children and how to raise children, because they certainly did it right with us in terms of instilling work ethic and drive and passion and belief. I think it's certainly a book for somebody who feels like the walls are caving in on their head. Like they can't breathe, like they're suffocating, they're drowning, and they don't have an escape hatch. Because believe me, we felt that many times throughout this process. Certainly a book that's informative from a history standpoint, because I don't think any book will teach you more about government than this one. But again, if you work your ass off, if you fight, if you believe, if you don't cower, if you don't give in, if you fight with your heart and soul and your family, and you don't give into the mob, and you don't give into corruption, and you do what's right, how you can overcome in ways that you couldn't possibly imagine, only to win on the biggest stages around the world. And that's exactly what he's done. And he's done that every single day.
So you've said it twice now, David versus Goliath. So let's talk a little bit about Goliath. Somebody who's actually built like Goliath, I think, is Letitia James. And, that's quite a Goliath moment, right? I mean, this was something that was meant to destroy your family, that threatened. I mean, this is an attorney general. And Eric, it was way back in in the first term, actually. You told me, man, this attorney general in New York, she is promising to come after my family. She's running on promising to come after my family. It was at the hotel, actually, here in DC. Sure. And sure as shooting, dude, she made good on that promise and did everything she possibly could. Now she finds herself trapped in a iron trap of her own making, actually. She's committed mortgage fraud. According to the experts and some sources that we have, these are just appetizer indictments. There's a lot more to come. It's got to be a remarkable thing to witness. I mean, it's got to be just fascinating to see somebody who's tormented your family in such a grotesque and public manner now see that no one is above the law.
Isn't it kind of amazing? I mean, this is also a little bit biblical, and I don't mean to be soft, but isn't it amazing that they always dig so deep that they found themselves, right? I mean, Letitia, I mean, $600 million, and sure enough, got overturned 5-0 by the appellate courts and everything else, and now all of a sudden, she dug so deep that she found herself. It's kind of interesting. Hillary Clinton did the same thing with the whole Russia hoax. I mean, Hillary and clearly Obama, with the whole Russian nonsense that they came up with. I mean, they dug so deep. And by the way, I'm not thrilled about how long it took to get us here, right? I mean, karma can oftentimes be extremely slow and painful, but when it arrives with vengeance. I mean, tell me it didn't arrive with vengeance when Hillary literally dug so deep that she found herself, and everybody knows that she was the crook on the other side who was literally funding all of this. I mean, look at Christopher Steele and the dirty dossier. They dropped that as their October surprise. They dug so deep that they literally found, they found the Democratic Party. I mean, look at the auto pen, and Biden, right? I mean, they dug so deep. Look at the raid on Mar-a-Lago, right? They said it was on behalf of NARA. They said, when I got the call, and I talk a lot about this in the book, when I get the call that, you have 30 FBI agents at the front gates of Mar-a-Lago. Yes, they're here on behalf of NARA, National Archives. It's like, give me a break. Like, public library is sending 30 armed FBI agents to raid a former president's home and very likely a future. And guess what? We find out that was Joe Biden, it was Merrick Garland, and it was everybody else at the top setting this whole thing up to weaponize government. I mean, look at Fani Willis, right? Another great example, and her boyfriend, Nathan Wade. They dug so deep in a nonsense case that they ended up finding themselves. Who did they find, right? They found that they were corrupt as hell, and they were all sleeping together, and this whole thing was totally improper. And Nathan Wade seemed to be going over to the White House every 3 days. Look at Jack Smith. I mean, another great example. He raided Mar-a-Lago. He demanded that I turn off all security cameras. What did they find? They find that they were literally leaving classified folders on the office of my father's, the office floor, and then staging photo shoots, which, they were leaking those pictures out to the mainstream media to otherwise discredit him. Once again, they dug so deep that they ended up finding themselves. I mean, how many more examples do I have to go through? Look at Antifa. Look at Black Lives Matters. They dug so deep that they found themselves, and they did so over and over and over again. And so it's one kind of the great ironies that, be careful what you wish for in the world. Be careful of the false narratives you try and put out there. Sometimes I always said that if Democrats went 2/3 of the way, they would be much more effective. But the fact that they can't actually, they can't go 2/3 of the way. They always try and go full bore, and they always find themselves right in the middle of these controversies. But it is very biblical that, that the world, and that God won't allow these things perpetuate. And again, sometimes it's slower than I like, Benny. I must admit. but they always seem to catch themselves. It's like the law of unintended consequences. The unintended consequences is that they're normally the criminals, and the very projection that they offer upon you is exactly what they're doing. And the way they're able to project is they're playing the game that they're projecting. So they're sick enough to be able to tell you what's happening because they were the one that invented the actual scandals. And, it's rather remarkable.
What is your message to a Hillary Clinton who is out praising your father? What is your message to a Bill Clinton who's out praising your father? You mentioned Hillary there, obviously, and everyone's well aware of what Hillary's done to your family. But what would be your message to them today? Some people are like, well, they're just trying to play nice,
I think my message would be, well, first of all, I'm glad that there's some integrity finally. I've only heard Hillary Clinton ever say two nice things. On the debate stage, they made her say, what would you say is the greatest aspect of your political opponent? And she said, his children. They're amazing children, incredibly smart, hardworking, and I give him a lot of credit and honor. So that was the first nice comment. And then yesterday was the second nice comment when she praised him for this Middle East deal, right? But what's really remarkable is if you go back to the Bill Clinton speeches from years ago and the Hillary speeches, I mean, my father could be delivering the same speeches. I'm talking about you have to go back like 20 years, right? But now they're talking about illegal immigration, how it doesn't work and how it can't sustain. And, I mean, they would have been like firmly in the Republican camp. And then somehow day after day, they tacked further and further and further to the left. And the left is destroyed now. I mean, immigration arguments lost. When you see these people trying to defend the fact that we're blowing the hell out of drug boats as they're smuggling fentanyl that will kill our kids, that's a 99% issue. Guess what? I have 4 friends who have lost kids to fentanyl. That is a 99% issue. Like, do me a favor. Like, when you start defending drug cartels, like you're losing. When people want clean streets and J.B. Pritzker is out there trying to tell people, like, don't clean up Chicago, a city that last weekend had 70 shootings. Guess what? You're losing people. When again, you have a man my size swimming in collegiate women's sports, congratulations. You just lost every father and mother in NCAA swimming, for obvious reasons, right? Have some integrity. And if they stuck to their former beliefs and they didn't go down these rabbit holes, God, they'd be a much more formidable force. Instead, we've knocked them off. I mean, we've knocked them off. They don't have anything. I mean, they've got no leadership. They're crazy as hell. People are considering like AOC the leader of the Democratic Party. She's crazy. I mean, it's like they're not serious people at this point. And yet my father's out there getting Middle East peace, and he's getting out. I mean, inflation is the lowest it's ever been. Fuel prices are coming down. Biggest tax cut in history. Again, churches filled. American pride, American patriotism is back. A love for this nation, respect around the world. That's what Americans want, not this other garbage. And so I think what I tell her is be true to yourself because you've clearly lost your way. But listen, I think the fact that she complimented him is a step in the right direction. Now, Anthony Blinken won't do it. Right? Elizabeth Warren was saying it's her calling for Hamas to release, the hostages that ultimately effectuated yesterday's result. Like, give me a break. Does anybody actually think Pocahontas had any role, in the hostage release? Of course not. But, so listen, I give her credit. I give Joe Biden credit for the one comment he made. I think you still have a lot of people who are crazy as hell out there who will never learn and can't learn from their mistakes and, can't hear the tone of this country who is vehemently against them and what they stand for.
It's interesting that you brought that up because actually I wanted to ask you about this Obama clip that surfaced yesterday, and also the fact that Barack Obama is the one, and it's very telling, who refuses to compliment President Trump. He's the highest ranking Democrat that has utterly refused to even mention the name of your father at all in all of this and just say, well, I'm really glad that this finally happened. And it's probably thanks to me. In fact, Barack Obama yesterday, not only did he not thank President Trump for the peace agreement in Gaza, but he also in a clip, we don't have to play the clip, but we can just pop it up, said, listen, I was forced to engage in a shadow government. He straight up says it in this interview, and I think he just doesn't care anymore. But he's like, I wanted to get out of government. 8 years was long enough. But because Trump was so mean and such a threat, I was forced to just move down the street, right, to call my Colorama house. And I just had to pretty much play the shadow president. And he kind of just openly admits it here. And I was running the party. There was no leader. So it was just me running the party. And I was effectively running a against Trump from down the street in the White House, which is an insane admission, but something that we all knew was happening. Your reaction to this, Eric?
My reaction is he's not very good at running anything because he was a terrible president in my opinion, and beyond that, I mean, he ran on hope. Look how good his library is doing right now. Like, Barack Obama, I am happy to come in and save your presidential library. I mean, the guy literally, they go down the streets in Chicago, Benny, and they're like, what does that look like? And everybody's like, man, that looks like a jail. Like that thing looks like a jail. Now they're like billions of dollars over budget. Every day they're getting, sued for, discrimination. I was reading an article the other day where like everybody in the library is getting sued for discrimination. Like the great irony of all of this. This building is hundreds of millions of dollars over budget. Is years behind schedule. Like the guy literally can't build a building in his home city, and he's talking about running the United States government. Yet my father's over there getting peace deals done that are unthinkable, right? I mean, accomplishing so much. It's the guy needs a little bit inward reflection on being an actionable leader. But either way, my offer still stands. I'm more than happy to finish up the Barack Obama library. I'll actually get it done for him. But no, listen, it's disgusting. This is exactly what we had to work against. I mean, he was the one that came up with the whole concept of the fact that, there was Russian interference and, the Russians were to blame for Hillary Clinton's loss, and the Russians were colluding, and that, Trump had secret servers in the basement of Trump Tower and everything else. I mean, he's behind all of that. I mean, you see all the recent reports that are coming out about this. And I mean, think about the fact that, our government, I mean, think about the millions of hours, press hours, time, effort that was wasted distracting the American people from, hey, in the entire government from being the number one superpower in the world and being better than China in everything we do, and American exceptionalism, all because, a person wants to put up roadblocks, from, the comfort of their townhome 3 blocks away. It's not very American. And I don't think history is going to look kindly on him for those actions.
We went to the Obama Presidential Library, just since you brought it up. I wasn't planning on it, but we kind of have to. We went to the Presidential Library and we asked people in that neighborhood, Eric, ever so kindly and politely, like, what do they think that it looks like exactly? And everyone told us it looked like a phone booth or a jail or a trash can. Some of the other responses we got was a TARDIS from Doctor Who. Some people just said it looks like a rock. One boy said it looks like a gray mountain. Fine, but like, is that really aspirational? Benny,
I'm in charge. I'm in charge of the Donald J. Trump Presidential Library. Right, I can promise you. First of all, it's going to be done on budget, ahead of schedule, and I can promise you, it's going to be the greatest shrine to the greatest president this country has ever had. And I promise you, it's going to be the greatest structure ever created for a president by far. It's going to be the greatest library ever envisioned. And I promise you, it will not look like a jail. This much I can tell you. It will have the most beautiful curtain wall. I mean, I couldn't even begin to fix that building, and I'm really good at fixing buildings. Like what do you do? You cut through. You know how much concrete went into that? Like, you could have had a substantially more beautiful building for less money that would have actually had windows in it. But hey, what the hell do I know about building? It's just the only thing that I've ever done my entire life. But I promise you, the Donald J. Trump Library, and I can't give you details yet, but it is the most beautiful structure you've ever seen. You're going to start seeing designs of it sooner rather than later.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So I was going to ask, like, there's no teaser. Will it be a skyscraper? Will it be just, we know that it's going to be Miami.
Benny,
we have the announcement tweet right here.
My problem is I love you too much. I can't do it. I
right.
love you too.
Right.
I love you.
Right.
I love.
Right.
I'm not giving anybody any tidbits other than the fact that it's freaking spectacular, and it's going to be very well warranted. And honestly, there is no project that I could be associated with that I care more about than honoring that man based on everything he's gone through. It's going to be. I'll put my entire heart and soul into it, and it's going to be spectacular.
Can I make a humble suggestion? It's totally out of bounds for me because I don't have a background in this, but can I make a humble suggestion from the audience? Because I know the audience wants this. Corporate media has paid you close to $100 million in settlements. Much of that goes towards the presidential library. So please, for the love of God, make the fake news wing of the library sponsored by ABC News and CBS and 60 Minutes, and put their logos right up there and just show everyone who paid for the fake news wing of the library.
By the way, I hadn't thought of that, but that's beautiful. We could do a floor dedicated to, and what we'll do is we'll just roll the 60-minute clip over and over of how they doctored Kamala's interview, and we can roll Charlottesville over and over and over of how they just cut out this little segment and forgot, 3 words at the end of the sentence. And yeah, I actually think that'd be a great exhibit about how dishonest these people are and how they will lie, cheat, and steal. We can probably put the Stephanopoulos interview in there with JD, with JD from 2 days ago. I mean, that would be a great one. And we can remind people who all of these people are. In fact, that Stephanopoulos literally ran the Clinton war room, but now they have to fairly moderate debates. We could certainly put 60 Minutes on there as well when Leslie Stahl said, hey, they did not spy on Donald Trump's campaign, even though they were clearly spying on Donald Trump's campaign. Hey, there's a lot of fodder out there. Believe me, I will make, in honor of Benny Johnson, and because I think it's a phenomenal freaking idea that I'm really upset that I didn't think about myself, I will do an entire floor dedicated to the fake news, and I'll have a little trademark in your honor, Benny. That's a wonderful idea, and I promise I will accomplish that for you. Make no mistake, I will accomplish that for you.
This is the time for cheers. This is the time for cheers, Klein. Yes, thank you. This is the time for cheers. Thank you. That has made my week.
And by the way, there's an area in there for Charlie as well, because you better believe he's a hell of a part of this journey, and he certainly needs to be honored in that building.
Wow. The fake news wing, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first. What a remarkable journey. I know, Eric, that you have a slam-packed day today. If you'll allow me, just a closing question on the response to what's happened over the last 24 hours, 48 hours. You started off with your father going to heaven. Many people saying that actually perhaps Charlie's memorial was the first time they really heard your father speak in deep earnest about his faith, and your brother Don. And that ain't never happened before on a live stage, right? Where Don Jr. and Donald Trump Sr. both profess Christ. That is very rare. What, if anything, that's a miracle that Charlie brought, truly. And it's just because I think that your family's private about these kind of things, and that's very old school, and that's the way a lot of people are. But perhaps you could tell the internet, who was everyone was so earnestly concerned about your dad saying, I'm not going to heaven. And I think he was just saying it kind of as a joke, right? But either way, tell me quickly about his faith. I'm sure that it's covered in the book Under Siege, out today, link in the description. But maybe you could end with that, right? How does your father practice his faith?
Yeah. Well, he doesn't wear it on his sleeve like so many people, right? I can't tell you how many phony politicians that I've met who wear it on their sleeve and they pretend to be somebody that they're not. My father tries to do the right thing, and he's there to do the right thing. And that's the man he is. I mean, he believes in God. Obviously God is, guiding this journey, but yet he's humble. I mean, in Butler, you remember his first words were, I wasn't meant to be here. And you had the entire audience are all wearing the patch on the ear say, yes, you were. Yes, you were. So, what you heard yesterday was almost an extension of Butler. It's almost this kind of self-deprecating type, it's, humbleness that's coming out of him. At the same time, I have to say, and I don't mean to go from kind of the thoughtful and spiritual to kind of the funny, right? But, I'm not sure if you were watching the speech yesterday when he was in the cabinet, all the Israelis were around, and he looks down at Bibi Netanyahu and he goes, my daughter, she's happy to be here. She loves the great people of Israel, and she loves Judaism, and she converted, Bibi. She converted, and Bibi, this was not necessarily in the cards. I can tell you this much. This was her becoming Orthodox was not in the cards, and the entire parliament was laughing. Right? I mean, he's been a guy who's always been able to bring some kind of levity to religion, which was normally kind of against the rules, for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. And he did that. I mean, literally, here he is, Christian guy speaking in a predominantly, obviously, Jewish room, talking about, a daughter converting and how, he would have never seen that in his wildest dreams, but yet it's beautiful. And that's why she's there, and her love for Israel and love for the Jewish people. And, I don't think too many other people could kind of get away with that, nor would they have ever gone down that, down that road. Right. And I think that's what people find endearing about him. The fact that he's really honest. He's never somebody else. He's never fake. Yes. He never pretends to be the Bible thumper that certain people in politics pretend to be, because they think it's otherwise going to benefit them in some way, shape, or form, even though they're kind of total phonies in their entire life. No different when he showed up at the Iowa State Fair, right? As a politician, I watch half these guys. I'm not going to throw out names because I don't need to start insulting people. I mention it. I talk about it a lot in Under Siege, but How many people threw on a pair of Carhartts, their work boots, their steel toe work boots? They've never worn a pair of boots in their life, right? They would hop on a Harley Davidson 300 yards away from the gates of the Iowa State Fair. They'd ride their Harley in there. Like, they look like total phonies. I mean, they don't know like the shift pattern on a Harley yet. They practically fall. They don't know where the kickstand is. They rented the thing three minutes ago. They ride in. The sticker is still on their Carhartts. I've never been washed. I've never been used. I have no grease or oil on them. And they want to be considered like authentic people, right? Yeah, my father flies in on his helicopter from New York in a suit and a red tie. And that's what people adore him. Like he doesn't fake it. He clearly believes. There's no one, believe me, especially after what he's gone through. There's no one who believes in faith more than him at this point. But at the same time, he doesn't. He doesn't act. He's not an actor. He's true to himself, and he says what's on his heart and in his soul. And I think you saw that yesterday.
Ah, what a beautiful ring. The family that brought world peace, the Trumps. I mean, I can believe that I'm saying it. I kind of can't believe I'm saying it, but it's true. Whatever you believe, it's absolutely true. And Eric Trump out today with a book today on Charlie's birthday, the book about how it was all done, how they did it. Under Siege right here. You can order it. It is already a #1 bestseller, and it is the true roadmap, the blueprint, the brick by brick of what happened to get us to this incredible moment. From the family that brought us world peace, Eric Trump. Everyone follow. Obviously, Eric has millions upon millions of followers. Get on in there and fight with the people who are fighting for us. Godspeed, Eric.
Thanks, Benny. We love you very much, my friend. And God bless you, especially today. And I know how deeply profound today is.
It'll be a beautiful day. I know it. Thank you, Eric. Holy moly. How much fun was that? That was amazing. It's just Eric just lets it rip, man. That's just incredible. So the production team, what happens behind the scenes at the show is the production team's like, oh, there's a clip, that's a clip, let's package that, let's get that up, that's going to go viral, that's going to go viral. The entire chat's like bing, 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 bing. Eric's just breaking tons of news. It's going to be a good one. What an absolute G. More news to come, ladies and gentlemen. Stay tuned. We have major announcements. Eric and I may be appearing together on the road. Exciting. I don't want to get in front of everything, but we're going to take the show on the road, and we'd love to see you. So get ready. More to come very, very soon. Ladies and gentlemen, just fascinating moments. Very interesting. Let's just get to one of these. Trump reacts to Bill Clinton's praise of him on Air Force One. Well, since we just heard Eric react, we have to hear Trump do it, right? We heard Trump roast Hillary Clinton live yesterday. Let's listen to President Trump embrace Bill Clinton's praise of him right now. Let's rock.
What's your reaction to President Bill Clinton giving you credit for ending the war?
Well, I always liked President Clinton. I've always gotten along with him. He used to be a friend of mine. Came to my wedding, So did she. A lot of people don't know that. But now I've always liked him. I thought it was very nice, actually. And what is he doing? He's telling the truth. Because nobody else has been able to do it. Talking about the Middle East. Yes, Mr. President.
You love to see it. I often talk about this, and I have an announcement, I guess, that we should, given the fact that we're going to talk about sort of the healing lines of potentially bringing us back to the 90s. Is that a good thing? That's something to be studied. But do you remember, like in America, where we agreed on more than we disagreed on? That's kind of what I want to get back to. I don't want to be cucked, right? Like, I don't want it to be like, let's all be weak together and like let Democrats do whatever they want and let globalism reign and sell everything out to China and open our borders. Nope. No. In my lifetime, though, I'm in my late 30s. In my lifetime, there was an America where we agreed on, I was born in the 80s. There was an America where we agreed on a lot more than we disagreed on. There was arguments over marginal tax rates and healthcare. Cool. Got it. But right now, the argument seems to be like, should America even exist? Well, should we kill all of you? Like that, that's not, you can't argue with that. You can't make peace with that. You can't unite with that. I want like a united country. I want to be able to argue these things. I want to be able to have these conversations. Like to do that, you've got to take a couple of major steps. And so tomorrow we're going to take a major step. We're going to spend some time with a congressional Democrat here on the program. And we're going to be live with a Democrat from California, of all places, Ro Khanna. And he's going to be just chilling with us. We're going to be spitting live. This will be our live show here in DC. And we're really excited about it. Ro reached out after, and I say Ro, I've never actually met him, but he reached out after Charlie's assassination and said, yo, I want to like bring the temperature down. And I'm for that, man. And I'm also for having these conversations. And if AOC or Bernie Sanders says, I want to come on the stream, then the answer is yes, sure, let's do it, please. And so I said yes. And I wanted to do it in person. So it has some more, old-timey, good old-fashioned like conversation. And that's what we're going to do tomorrow. We're going to do it live here. And it'll be, we've had Democrats on before, that's for sure. But Ro Khanna's pretty famous and a pretty high-ranking Democrat and from, a Democrat superstate of California. And we're going to try our level-headed best. I know I will, to have like a very civilized conversation about things that we perhaps have in common as a country, right? Things we don't, and where we can agree. And maybe someone will convince the other, or more importantly, maybe we can just like have a human discussion, right? About the best charted path forward for this nation and our children. That's what I want, because that's all that matters, actually. What kind of a country are you leaving to your kids exactly? And so that's what we're going to do. It's going to be awesome. So I hope you'll join us tomorrow. We'll be promoting it and announcing it later today, but here's the announcement right here live. Jamie, get working on a graphic. here's your Jamie, here's your chat live. Need a graphic for tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, if obviously I have to sometimes do these things live on the chat, because we are constantly locked in and on the internet all day long. If you are one of those people, you're probably looking for ways to become more efficient online. You're probably looking for ways to ensure that you can use every moment that you are away from your family at work in the most dynamic and disciplined way. So you can get back to your family and get back to your kids and go back to doing what you love, whether that's fly fishing or flying a kite. Doesn't matter to me. What I'm saying here is use Comet. The Comet browser is an AI-powered browser that helps eliminate the endless time that you spend typing, closing tabs, searching online, browsing. Goodness gracious. Comet can shop for you, make reservations, book travel. It can summarize articles, videos, send emails, schedule meetings, and do a lot more. It learns typing and searching for you and scrolling. It's awesome. It's powered by Perplexity's AI. And this is someone who's partnering with Rumble, actually. And so they're totally in favor of free speech. They're people who are rowing in the same direction, I guess you could say. So, ladies and gentlemen, download Comet today. Go to pplx.ai/Benny. Let your browser work for you. Right now, when you download Comet, you get a month of Rumble Premium for free. pplx.ai/Benny. Go take back your time online. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, so many fascinating news stories out there. Let's just pop into one more here. The Kamala Harris Gavin Newsom rivalry. We got to ask this tomorrow when Ro Khanna's on the show. Ro Khanna's a Democrat from California, so why not ask a few uncomfortable questions? I mean, come on, you just got to ask a couple. Here we go. Ro Khanna. What are we going to ask him about? Well, there's two Democrats from California that are running. We just had a death threat from California. Dude's in federal prison right now because he got arrested for threatening to kill me from California. Gavin Newsom has yet to say anything about that. Weird for the party of peace that disavows violence. But nonetheless, Kamala Harris and Gavin are now at each other's throats and are trying to sabotage each other. Let's look here at the Axios article, and then we'll play some reporting from our friend Charlie Spearing. So Axios is saying that the Kamala-Gavin rivalry builds as Gavin is trying to sabotage her presidential run. Oh, boy. Since they entered the California politics over 20 years ago, Kamala and Gavin Newsom have ducked one another in a one-to-one showdown. Now the Democrat rivals are barreling towards each other in a contested race for 2028 White House. It could be a Hollywood script. The former vice president, and now touting a new book, is seeking redemption after failing to Donald Trump last year. The California governor is a rising star and has burst onto the national stage. Producers, we're gonna have to get articles that are not locked. Not locked here, but you know what was not locked? Our friend Charlie Spearing, who was on last night, explaining this rivalry between Kamala and Gavin, and it's going to be beautiful. Oh, I see it's here in the script. ALX is going to say it's in the script. It's in the script. Okay. Well, I'm talking about Klein. Poor Klein here. Harris set off the public sniping between the pair last month when she took a dig at Newsom in her new book. Then President Biden dropped out of the race. Harris called Democrat lawmakers to ask for an endorsement. She wrote in her book that she reached out to Newsom. He was hiking and would call her back, but he did not post his endorsement online. He did post his endorsement online hours later, but Harris wrote that Newsom never called her back. Mean girl. Harris has been using her tour to argue that even with her 107-day campaign, she got close to beating Donald Trump. Newsom recently said privately that asked Harris why she didn't mention in her book that he had quickly endorsed her. She says, on a book tour, get back to you later. Oh, boy. So here's the mean girl. Dissension. Newsom has also publicly second-guessed Harris's response to Trump's 2024 campaign ads and her support of taxpayer-funded gender-related surgeries for transgender migrants in federal prisons. Good one. Please run on that. She didn't even react to it, which is even more devastating, Newsom said in a podcast. So he's calling her campaign devastating. Turns out that they are actually now trying to sabotage each other behind the scenes in donor circles. Bringing us that information, Charlie Spearing of the Daily Mail right here.
So Kamala is getting sent to voicemail by Joe. Wow.
Yeah, absolutely, Jesse. People I talked to found that really puzzling, that somehow Kamala Harris found time to connect with Joe Biden to talk about her book. But wow, when it comes to the most intense treatment for his cancer, she gets sent to voicemail and apparently hasn't taken the time to make those calls.
And Gavin poached all of the Kamala staff. I don't know if that was a brilliant move or not.
Well, it shows that maybe he's concerned that Kamala Harris will, in fact, be a candidate for the next time around. He definitely wants to keep that from happening, and maybe the best thing he can do is short some of her most important staff to get that threat out of the way. The last thing he wants is to be on the stage debating Kamala Harris in 2028, remembering all of their past together. They have avoided that kind of clash for a very long time.
Yeah, she'll just accuse him of racism. That's usually her go-to. But they're going to be out, the Democrats, in Gavin's neck of the woods. This Napa retreat sounds super swanky, Charlie.
Yes, Jesse, you know that the Democrats view the Napa fundraising circuit as the most wealthy and the most delightful trips. This is something they definitely don't want to cancel. And I'll be surprised if Gavin Newsom isn't there. He loves attending wine fundraisers. Even COVID couldn't stop him from a winery fundraiser. And he was definitely fundraising at a winery in June when the ice riots were going on and Los Angeles was burning.
Well, I would just hate to be the masseuse who has to book Schumer.
Jesse Waters is one of the funniest guys in television. Jesse Waters, the masseuse who has to book Schumer. I'd hate to be the masseuse who has to book Jerry Nadler. How do you even begin? Right? What even is a Jerry Nadler? You ever seen a photo of this guy? Please get me a photo of Jerry Nadler. He defies biological understanding. A Jerry Nadler. You ever seen this? I don't even know. I'm not saying he's not a human being. I'm saying that Jerry Nadler is something totally and wholly unique. He's shaped very much like some type of vegetable, actually. That's a good example. Like, what exactly is that, in fact? Like, I've seen things like these grow, like, out of the ground or, like, off a tree. There's more. Give me the one with, like, the belt, where, like, the belt is, like, near the neck. It's very strange. So like, could you imagine being a masseuse and like this walks in? Like where do you even, I mean, other than jumping out a window, I think, which would be the logical response. Yeah. I mean, first off, and would you even see, no, that's not the one. There's one I'm thinking about the one where he's walking in the parade. This is the one that, yeah, this one, Klein, pop this up. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, perfect. Keep going, Klein. Yeah. All right. Well, so first off, would the masseuse even see Jerry Nadler walk in? That's the question. Would he be able to get over the counter at the massage place, right? To ding the bell, yeah, ding, 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 and then you look around and there's nobody there. Like, this is what Jerry Nadler looks like when he does a press conference. This is the one I'm trying to talk about. What is this exactly? You know, what's going on here? Again, Jesse Waters is asking a legitimate question about, like, what do you do with Schumer? And I'm saying, what's happening here? Like, look at the belt. Zoom in, Klein. Look at the belt. Like, that defies physics. No one's ever seen anything like it. That's string theory, actually. Right? That is string theory. This is wave theory. This is the, sort of the dynamics of the universe, gravity and time all together colliding, warping time and space. That don't make no sense, is what I'm trying to say. And I guess there's one more here. He does look like This is Jerry Nadler during one of the Trump impeachments. And my kids read this story. It's called this one's called The Egg, Humpty Dumpty. And this is a story that my kids read all the time, and it's about an egg that sits on a wall, and it's too bad. This has got to be an AI. It has to be an AI. There's no way that's real. How is it real? All right, last one. Okay, this one. I'm not going to ask Ro Khanna about these, okay? I'm just letting you guys know. We're going to just leave these to the chat, all right? We got a lot of important stuff to talk to Ro Khanna about. We're not going to talk to him about these. I do want to know, though, if Ro Khanna's if this is AI. I don't know. I don't know Jerry Nadler. I don't. I think he's retiring. But if Jesse Waters is talking about masseuses and strange people walking in to get massages, I think my biggest fear if I were a masseuse would be Jerry Nadler. Okay? That's just... I'm saying it defies biological reality. That's all I'm saying. All right? Okay. I don't want the answers, just in case you're wondering. Like, I don't want the answer. This is a question of which I am willing to give to the cosmos. I don't want the answer. I don't want to know the answer. I'm happy for this to remain a mystery of the ages. Ladies and gentlemen, something that's not a mystery of the ages is how I invest my money. Well, I don't have any time. So I don't, meaning I don't invest my money. Like, who has time? Do you think I'm like sitting around like following stocks all day? I can't. I'm literally recording every single second of the day, crushing content going on in my kids. Allio Capital is who invests my money. Allio is the AI-powered capital app that makes sure that my portfolio is moving and is moving in very wise ways behind the scenes. And I want my portfolio to do what this show does. The show's been successful because it reflects current trends, breaking news, rates and wars, and all of the kind of things that move markets. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is how you make sure that your money is moving for you. Allio Capital uses Altitude AI to make sure that their investment portfolios are fluid, adjusted, and that this adjustment happens very quickly and can be done hands-on or hands-off, macro or micro. This is exactly how I am securing my financial future, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure that you're downloading their app. It's got 4.8 out of 5 stars in the App Store, Google Play. Text my name, Benny, to 511-511 for Allio Capital, A-L-L-I-O Capital. Text Benny to 511-511 today. All right, rocking and rolling. Ladies and gentlemen, Alec Baldwin slammed his car into a tree. And I want to talk about that with our next guest because maybe he knows him. I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't want to insult the man. but he is Oliver Stone's son, which is awesome. And he has an incredible new movie out. His name's Sean Stone. This is his first time on the program. He's the director of RFK Legacy, which is so sweet. Do we have the trailer? I want to play that trailer, at least maybe just as a play beside. But joining us now is Sean Stone. This is a documentary. I haven't seen it yet, but it's available at Angel Studios. Actually, Angel Studios is the sweater I wore through the airport today. Awesome swag. They're an even more awesome product. And here's one of them, ladies and gentlemen. Joining us live now, Sean Stone, the director of RFK Legacy. Sean, it's wonderful to have you on the program. I appreciate your patience today. And I appreciate your willingness to dive into the art of documentary filmmaking. It seems to be quite the family business. And I love your subject matter here with RFK.
Yeah. It's nice to see the story as both a Democrat and an independent, right? Because the story is about RFK Sr. and Jr. And as we know, RFK Sr. was one of the great potential presidents, right, that we never had. And
yes,
RFK Jr. is maybe one day he'll be president. Some people, I think, are still hopeful that we'll see that. And so I started launching into this project when RFK Jr. decided to run for president. And I said, well, what a great parallel, because between him and his father, and at the same time, the mainstream media was trying to paint him as sort of the black sheep of the family, right? That he was a kook, that they would quote, JFK's grandson and others, basically attacking him, calling him, crazy and things like this. And I said, well, actually, if you look at RFK Jr.'s pedigree, his background, his work, on the environment, he was loved. He was beloved by the establishment. He was beloved by the Democrat Party. He spoke at the DNC in 2004 before Obama. And so I felt like, let's remind people who RFK Jr. is, and also who RFK Sr. is, and who JFK is, because actually they all challenged the establishment in different ways throughout their lives. And I believe that's ultimately what led to the assassination of both JFK and RFK Sr.
Can I ask you a couple of questions, since you've gone so deep and probably spent hundreds of thousands of hours researching for this documentary? What would the country be like? Would we have the modern day Democratic Party today if the Kennedys had actually been the foundational family of that party? Because that's what was about to happen, right? You were about to see a Kennedy dynasty that might have spanned multiple presidential cycles. JFK obviously was set to romp in the 64 cycle and was probably going to win something like 40 states. What would the country have looked like exactly with the Kennedys at the helm of the Democrat Party?
Sure. Certainly the Democrats of today, there's a lot of Democrats, as we see with RFK Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard and many others, right, who have left the Democrat Party as it is today, because it's gone. Even I think people use these quotes, from Bill Clinton in the 90s, right, talking about needing to enforce strict, to be strict when it comes to illegal immigration, right, things like this. That the Democrats of the 90s even are not the same as the Democrats today. That's clear. The main thing with JFK and RFK was, when it came to domestic policy, they were pro-labor at the same, they did challenge businesses and the big businesses of the time, big oil and things like this. But at the same time, they were challenging the system when it came to foreign policy. That was, I think, the main reason that they were killed. The Vietnam War, my father argued this back in his film JFK in 91. The Vietnam War, by the way. And it got into things that, to this day, the establishment doesn't want to acknowledge. They want to still blame JFK. The establishment historians still want to make Vietnam JFK's war that Johnson inherited, as opposed to the idea that it was a CIA war, really. It was a CIA operation that was expanding. And JFK, was kind of reluctantly giving aid. And ultimately, just as with the Cuban Missile Crisis, which we highlight in our documentary on RFK, like, they didn't want, JFK and RFK did not want to be warmongers. They did everything they could to find peace. And that was very clear with the Cuban Missile Crisis, when there was a lot of hardliners who were saying, well, the Soviets are putting missiles into Cuba. We need to bomb Cuba right away, bomb it. And Kennedy's like, let's embargo first. And, RFK is basically working a back channel, trying to get directly to Khrushchev in the Soviet Union to say, listen, let's work out a deal, right? Let's make a deal essentially where you're going to pull your missiles back from Cuba. We're going to pull our missiles back from Turkey. And that way we don't feel like we're at each other's throats here. Let's actually get to a place which they were working towards, to maybe have joint space exploration. Let's not escalate things, right? Let's work and ultimately that mentality, I think, which JFK and RFK exemplified, was that of rationality, right? It's like, let's seek our best interest, but also recognize the interest of the other, because you can't have a negotiation where you just say, hey, I'm the boss, I'm in charge, America's stronger than you, we're gonna do it my way. It never work. It doesn't work, right? We've seen it throughout the last, let's say less than 100 years, but like 80 plus years post, World War II of international affairs. And what happens with all these coups, right? We go and we coup governments. We know now, the CIA operations, and we've seen it all the way through, the Libya coup and the Syria coup. And it's just like, it destabilizes. It creates more enemies, right? It creates more instability. And this is not what we need. We don't need this reputation of just being the bully. So I think what JFK and RFK represented was people that were thoughtful, that were thinking about, okay, how can we pursue our interest, but also recognize the interest of the other so that we can come to a negotiation. And as a result, I don't think we would have gotten to the Vietnam War if JFK had survived, right? I mean, it's pretty clear he already was drawing down some advisors, but he was talking about getting them all out after the 1964 election. Mm-hmm. And kind of like with Laos, which was another issue of communism, socialism, communism, he wasn't willing to engage in Laos. He wasn't going to engage in Vietnam. He wanted it to be, he said very clearly, I think it was to Cronkite, he's like, in the final analysis, it's their war, meaning South Vietnam versus North Vietnam. They're the ones that have to win it or lose it. We can support the South Vietnamese, but we're not going to ultimately bring our own boys, as we saw with the Vietnam War, which devastated our country psychologically, morally. So much of, if you think about so much of modern day left was born from the horror of Vietnam, because as people were radicalized essentially by saying, wow, look at how ugly we are as a country. We're out here sending hundreds of thousands of Americans out there to fight these, what they call whatever gooks or whatever, but the slang of the time. But it's like that. Why are we sending them thousands and thousands of miles across the world for American interests? And is this imperialism, right? And so it really stoked a lot of the anger and violence as we saw on campuses. And ultimately, there was radical movements. There was things like Weathermen. A lot of things grew out of it. And I think a lot of the political left of now, well, as we know, right, was rooted in that era of, look at how bad we are as a country, that you can on TV, see what we're doing in My Lai, massacring, civilians, and we're bombing and blowing up people. And ultimately they say, over 1 million Vietnamese were killed, and I guarantee a lot of them were civilians, right? And we and then we talk about an RFK documentary, Legacy, the use of Agent Orange chemicals, right? Mm-hmm. Monsanto makes these chemicals to deforest Vietnam. Well, it creates genetic mutations, not just for the Vietnamese, but also even for our own soldiers, and cancers and things like this, right? And so that's really, I think, the heart of what we get into in this documentary, is this impulse that JFK and RFK had against war, to say that should always be our last resort, not our first response.
Your answer there, Sean, is remarkable, because what you've just described is in such stark relief to what we've witnessed over the last 48 hours with President Trump winding down the war in Gaza. And you had a fanatical left that was marching through the streets, screaming free Palestine and the war, right? But Trump went and did that. I don't know where they went. I'm not sure where those people went. They're all gone now. But Trump did it, actually. And pretty much everybody who's reasonable is celebrating that there's no more spiraling war there that could turn into a much larger regional conflict. And we all know how that goes, right? And so do you believe that President Trump is the inheritor of the JFK legacy?
In a way, he, we did a documentary with Tucker Carlson, actually, it's on his network, and it's called All the President's Men, right? It's a documentary focusing on Papadopoulos, General Flynn, Giuliani, Kash Patel, Tucker. And we through these stories, Carter Page, through these stories, we show the Russiagate hoax. And our argument in that series, All the President's Men, was the reason that they created this conspiracy. Our intelligence services created the conspiracy that Trump was allied with Russia, right? It was really a conspiracy within our intelligence services to paint Trump and his allies as Russian agents. And our thesis is that it's because Trump came in basically saying, hey, why don't we have better relations with Russia? When he started saying that during his first campaign back in, starting in 2015-16, he was a marked man, because you can't say, let's have a good relationship with Russia, right? He was saying, let's get along. This is a major power in the world, which they are. And from that moment on, they had to target his administration and basically, denigrate him, paint it, try to impeach him, which they did multiple times. I mean, it really starts from our perspective on his overall approach, which was let's make a deal, let's work, let's figure out how we can work with the Russians.
Yes.
And so
when you're describing JFK, it sounds like that. It sounded like Trump, like, hey, every party has to get something out of this. We're going to make a deal here. We're going to bring peace. You're like describing JFK. I'm like, yo, that sounds a lot like Trump, man.
Well, that's exactly, that's why we made that thesis in that docuseries about Trump. And ultimately, I think that's why he was hated so much. I mean, even Tucker Carlson talks about like Bill Kristol, who he worked with for years, really hating Trump from like the moment he came out and was saying Iraq was a disaster, right? He's like, the Iraq war is a disaster. It's cost, lives. It's cost, trillions of dollars. What are we getting out of it as a nation, right? Like we're sacrificing our energy, our youth, our prestige in the world has been sacrificed. Our accountability. You're making up lies about WMDs, and people, you look bad, right, as a nation. So that's when the moment that all these neocons came against Trump, and both Republican and Democrat, right, the McCains and the Democrat neocons, so it's like, or just Democrats in general. But the point is that it was from that moment of him basically being pro, let's make deals. And I think that's what I admire the most about his ability to, I think, navigate the Middle East, because ultimately that's the only way we're going to have a peace in that region, is let's make deals between the various Arabs, and Israel. It's like, that's the only way forward. And likewise, I really am hoping that he does something with this Ukraine war, because it's in our ability. We're the ones that are really stoking that conflict. I mean, people think this is Russia versus Ukraine. No, this is Russia versus NATO. And, NATO has basically, if I always say, like, look, it's like the Cuban Missile Crisis. When the Cubans put missiles 90 miles away, we almost went to war. Russia was doing that now, or China was doing that now, putting missiles in Mexico or Canada. I'm sure we would have a much feistier response than just saying, oh, that's so disappointing. No, that's where Russia is now vis-a-vis Ukraine. They have a country that's historically very connected, culturally connected to them. That's literally, Kiev is something like, a few, 100 miles or so from Moscow. And you don't want to have active weapons on your border. So the same deal that Trump has worked out, and I hope it lasts. Obviously, we all pray that it lasts, because this is just the beginning in the Middle East. We all hope that he can do the same. But there's such a war machine that's profiting, as we know, from this Ukraine war. And it's been profiting, for these last, 10 years, really, when the conflict started back in 2014 with the coup in Maidan. It's been just, it's been about mostly our military industrial complex selling weaponry to Ukraine. And every time we turn around, we see, $100 billion deals here and there, right? So of course, it's a war machine. It's a war machine, and you have to navigate it without getting killed, which I believe is what happened with JFK and RFK Sr.
Okay, so that's very interesting. It brought me directly to my next question. Of course, we watched them try and kill Trump a couple times, sometimes with Ukrainian weapons. Fascinating enough, if you read the DOJ filings from Ryan Ralph. But in your documentary, there's so much work that has been done on JFK's assassination, and I don't think anybody in their right mind believes any more in the official narrative. I think that, in fact, polling shows the vast majority of people believe that obviously there's something else going on there. What it was, well, I'm not Maybe we will never know, but nobody believes the official narrative. And I think that's a victory, quite frankly. RFK, however, was also assassinated. And in your documentary, I want to ask, because I haven't actually watched it, Sean, and I look forward to watching it on Angel Studios. Link again in the description for the new RFK documentary. What did you find? What is your thesis as to what happened with RFK? Was it Sirhan Sirhan? Was it just like was it some psychopath? Was he on MK Ultra? Was this dude like on mind control? I've heard every story. I've heard a lot of stories from RFK Jr., about what a mysterious, strange dude this guy was that goes and shoots and kills RFK. What did you find in your documentary?
Yeah. No, I mean, we get into it, as part of the climax of the story. I've always been, raised obviously with being exposed to a lot of the information, let's say, around the JFK assassination. But even as a kid, looking at the books and the research, and obviously it's exploded, by the way, the industry around the JFK assassination in terms of the research and the writing has exploded since the film JFK came out. Before it, there was, there were some books. Now, I think if you look online, I mean, on Amazon, you'll find probably thousands of books about the JFK assassination, right? Not as much about the RFK conspiracy, not as many documentaries about it. And so, I mean, I watched, I think The Second Gun was a film that my dad showed me when I was a kid. And yeah, I was always curious about the RFK thing. It's a little bit, how do you say, it's the JFK this thing is so evidently not just a single shooter, because you've got the video, right? There's a Bruder film showing the time frame that it's operating in. The idea of 3.6 seconds or something, or 4 seconds or something to pull off the 3 shots, right? That hit Kennedy, and then the magic bullet, and all the things that my dad got into with JFK, and then his subsequent documentaries on JFK. I think it makes it pretty clear, like, this wasn't a one guy shooting from a window, right? With RFK, it was, Sirhan is not dead. Everyone saw him with the gun. This is why even RFK Jr. was like, I assumed he was the killer, right? Because, look, you've got the confession, and you've got the witnesses, and so it should be case closed, right? But then you look at the autopsy, because you always have to look at the forensics, right? If the forensics and the evidence doesn't add up, then you can't, as we know now much more from the true crime era, there's a lot of false confessions. A lot of people are bullied into confessing in this country. It's the nature of psychological torture, right? If there's a lot of arguments that if you have a, let's say if you have a guilty conscience, if you're not great moral standing, clarity, if you're with the police for a certain period of time, you could be bullied into making false confessions. We know this to be true now. With Sirhan, he was certainly under mind control. Whether it was MK Ultra, I mean, that's, I think, the most likely argument, because MK Ultra we know existed. We know it was so powerful a program of mind control that when Helms, the CIA director, was forced out by Nixon, he basically we know at least that the one thing that he shredded, he maybe shredded other things, but we know he shredded the MK Ultra documents. And we wouldn't even know about MK Ultra if not for a few boxes that were found that had not been shredded. So basically what we know about MK Ultra is mostly based on a few documents and then a lot of people coming forward and giving testimony about, and there's some wild stuff. Even in the 90s, like during the Clinton years, there were people coming forward basically who had been abused, and they were very young. Some of them were children. But yeah, they talked about, being mind controlled to try to create, perfect assassins and sex slaves. And I mean, you name it. There's so much on this subject, so much literature on this subject. It's a fascinating subject. So yeah. Yeah,
please continue, please.
So with Sirhan, I mean, again, it's clear that, that he doesn't have memory of it. And it's not like he just, he changed his story. He never had memory. Even at the time he was arrested, he wasn't clear of what happened, where he was. And to this day, he doesn't have memory. So this is not just an act. It's not like he played an act and, okay, you figured it out. Like with some of these serial killers, they acted and, I was, had multiple personality. I think of the Hillside Stranglers played that, I had multiple personality story, and ultimately it fell apart. right? And it was discovered that they were faking it. Sirhan, it's been clear he doesn't remember. So when RFK Jr. figured out that there was something wrong was when one of the people that was shot, that was close to his father, said, look, you got to look at the autopsy, because the autopsy tells a different story. And sure enough, RFK Jr. looked at it and he said, wait, you're telling me the coroner is saying that the bullet entered from about an inch behind the ear, and that the 4 bullets that hit RFK Sr. all came from behind? But Sirhan was about 3 to 6 feet in front of him. Right? So it doesn't make sense.
How is that not public? Like, how is that not one of the biggest scandals in the world, actually?
Well, they've been trying to parole Sirhan. He's had good lawyers that have been trying to, parole him for a long time. He can't even get parole because Kamala Harris blocked him. Gavin Newsom blocked it. I mean, there's an established way, as we know. Look, we are. Sometimes I say we're in a banana republic. I think anyone that interfaces with the court system, with the government at high levels, with the nature of that interface between the big corporate power and the government, it's like there's a different set of rules and understanding at that level than there is for what the public is sold, because the media plays this gatekeeper role. And this is what I've seen since I was 7 years old, or was it 7 years old during the making of JFK, when my dad tried to make that film. The media already tried to attack the film before it came out.
Of course.
They already were saying this was a fantasy before it came out. Oh, we got draft of the script. Here are the things that are wrong with the movie before it comes out. And then when it came out, it was like they were all in on, no, this is a fantasy. This is wrong, because every, whatever, this fact is off, or that point is he took 2 witnesses and conflated it into one person, or it's like you're trying to tell a story in a period of time, and you're trying to condense things. So it's not a perfect legal argument. The film isn't, but the evidence overall. My dad wrote multiple books going through the script, getting historians to that were on his side to go through the evidence and say, well, yeah, but let's have a debate on these subjects. The mainstream media does not want us to think that there are conspiracies in this world, unless it's government saying, well, 9/11 is a conspiracy, or we're going to charge you as a drug trafficker or a terrorist under conspiracy charges. The government uses conspiracy all the time. But if we as citizens try to say, hey, there's a conspiracy here, yeah, you're crazy. That's how this thing works.
I'm just confounded by this, and I cannot wait to go and watch this documentary. I'm going to watch it this evening. We're going to Charlie Kirk's Memorial Medal of Freedom ceremony, and I'll have a little bit of time, and I cannot wait to watch it. I guess I want to leave it on one note. Everyone has seen the Zapruder film. Virtually anybody who's tried to pay attention to this has seen the Zapruder film. And it's demonstrable evidence, obviously, that there was a larger conspiracy to kill JFK. That's like real physical evidence there. Those who have studied it a little bit more can look at JFK's autopsy and see the peculiarities and extreme darkness and cover-ups surrounding the autopsy of JFK. Also clearly lies. What you're telling me is that what happened to RFK is even more demonstrable than that? Because, at least you could bend some of the JFK evidence, you could try and slam it into like a single shooter narrative, and many have. But you will never be able to do that with Sirhan 7 feet in front of RFK, and RFK getting shot a bunch of times in the back. That is just like that is like clearly laughable, bends all laws of physics. Can't happen. Can't happen in a more demonstrable way than JFK getting shot by Oswald can't happen. Am I correct in that, Sean?
I would say the forensics would tell you it's impossible. The number of shots, also, there was evidence that there were more bullet holes that were found in the wall, like lodged in like the door frame and things like this. And the LAPD covered that up, basically. They had to hide that evidence because they wanted a clear case. They wanted a simple case. Now, there's also a question of, was Robert Mayhew, was he a major orchestrator of it? Because Mayhew, as we know, he's one of these great, James Bond type of characters that people used to know about. He even wrote an autobiography about his exploits. I'm sure it was a whitewashed autobiography, but he was one of these guys that was FBI, CIA, worked for Howard Hughes, who was, as we know, Howard Hughes was like the Elon Musk of that era, right? I mean, he had huge government contracts. He was doing all this work with everything from from World War II forward, when it came to like our jets, our manufacturing of planes and things like this. And also, he was interested in space. So you've got Mayhew, who's a very connected guy, connected to he was an intermediary between CIA and the mafia when it came to a lot of these Castro operations. And he's also has kind of the LAPD, let's say, arguably in his pocket. But in general, it's like with any of these things, like when you say the LAPD, well, no, most cops are not corrupt, but there are, as with anything, it's like CIA. It's not to say like if you're just an analyst for the CIA or you're doing your job, you're not all bad people. When we say CIA, it's like we're talking about an organization that has shadowy elements, right? And an ability, because of the compartmentalization of it, to keep secrets and to do things that would be classified as illegal if you or I did it. We just know it, right? And it's the same with, it can be the same with the police. It can be the same with anyone that has a certain amount of power. So did the LAPD, certain people within it, or let's say from the top down, did they cover it up? Sure. And I think that's how, when you get into these, again, these institutions, it's like, there are people that probably wanted to talk and just were told, you're not going to talk about it, right? Because there's bigger issues at stake here. You can't bring RFK Sr. back. And I think the same with JFK. Why didn't more people talk over the years? Well, they probably talked to their buddies or maybe want someone here or there, or maybe they took it to their grave. But that's what, when you're dealing with an ability to assassinate someone publicly, like a JFK or an RFK, sends a message to everyone else. I think the same with Charlie Kirk. I think the same with the near assassination of Trump. The assassinate to publicly execute people basically sends a message: be careful what you say. If we can kill them, guess what we can do to you?
I mean, absolutely, absolutely. And it's why I'm so interested in the continuation of the JFK legacy with Donald Trump, is because it is an affront to Trump's existence, and then Trump's success is actually an affront to that evil. And I think it's profound. And I'm sure that you actually study that in this documentary. Everyone can go and source the documentary right here, the Angel Studio Guild. It is streaming here for Guild members. You can see it at the URL angel.com /watch RFK Legacy is right here. This is the URL that you would go to, and you can become an Angel Guild member, and you can support independent creators. You can support truth telling here, like what Sean has done here in the incredible legacy of his father. And you can also catch so many other bangers that Angel Studios is producing. Sean's X handle is Watching Sean right here. You can follow him. He's got 21,000 subscribers, and you should be one of them. Always subscribe to the people who are really creating in the world. We need creators. Remember, that is such an important act of our Lord and Savior. Creation. You must be able to create and do new things. So we thank you, Sean, for doing things like this. Very brave things, actually. We hope we get the answers to these questions.
We do indeed. At the same time, just asking the questions is important, because we, as critical thinkers, that's our freedom. That's the beauty of this country, right? When they try to censor us and silence us and say, you can't ask those questions. You can't, you can't infer there's another story than what we present to you. We control the narrative. No, that's not America. We're still a free country.
That's such a great point. Thank you for bringing that up. That's exactly right. And that's why you've succeeded, and your family's legacy, obviously, in trying to speak the truth. You've succeeded in the fact that I'm not sure people know exactly who killed JFK, but everybody knows they've been lied to, right? And that is remarkable. That is a remarkable change in our culture, and it's in part to the Stone family. And so, thank you very much. Godspeed, Sean.
Thank you, Benny. Thanks for having me.
Ladies and gentlemen, all right. So I travel light, and I got a single bag. When I travel, I carry just a backpack. And my backpack, my wife gets up early. She wants her time in the morning. Most moms do, especially if little kids want their quiet time in the morning. So my wife's up. She gets me a coffee for the road before we head out today. And she also throws into my backpack my Bond Charge mask. This is something that I travel with. It is something that I use. It is a sauna blanket. It is a sauna mask. You use a mask or the blanket. And it's just great. I spend my time inside of these dark studios. You actually need red light to be healthy, to be on level, to make sure that you have sort of that euphoric, like calm before going to bed. That's when I use my sauna blanket from Bond Charge. I use the red light mask if my kids aren't around. If my kids are around, it does kind of look like a Halloween mask. There's a big red mask. It's on your face. But either way, that's what I travel with. It's great, man. It's just like a sauna. But it helps with your endorphins. It helps like chill you out. It helps ease your stress. And I just love it, man. You can go to Bond Charge right now. They ship worldwide. All these products are HSA and FSA eligible, pre-tax savings of up to 40%, plus free shipping on every sauna blanket and a 12-month warranty. Go to bondcharge.com/Benny. That's BONCHARGE.com/Benny to save 15%. Use the coupon code Benny to save 15%. These statements and products have not been evaluated by the FDA. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure, prevent any disease or condition. All right. Well, speaking of a disease, let's end with some on a happy note. The View. Speaking of people who've had trouble, man, ABC's had some massive crash outs with Jimmy Kimmel, George Stephanopoulos, and now The View. The View, a View host has promised to wear a MAGA hat live on set if President Trump delivers the Gaza deal. Will they do this? Will all the View women wear MAGA hats? This is a promise that we are going to hold them to. Alyssa Fair-Griffith promising to wear the MAGA hat. Here we go.
My point when I say I'm not going to be apocalyptic, it's not changing a tune. It's not making every single thing a 5-alarm fire. Yeah. If he does good, if he gets the Israeli hostages out, I promise I will wear a MAGA hat for one day on the show and say, thank you for doing it. Yeah. She'll knock it right off my head. But like you have to be able to cheer for wins when they happen and then call out relentlessly the wrongdoing.
Could you imagine? Make them do it. Hey, ABC, you want to like save your broadcast license? Like force all the View women to wear MAGA hats. Make them do it. We've had promises on the show. I've had to eat crow. I get humiliated and roasted every single day. I read the chats. I read the comments of the chat. Okay. Like, don't you worry. It's not like we're saying something we wouldn't practice or preach. We make a promise. We're good for it. Ladies and gentlemen, wear the MAGA hat. Wear the MAGA hat. Wear the MAGA hat. Okay. All right. That's right. Now the entire producer chat is roasting me because nobody roasts you better than your team, Benny. That's exactly right. And that's the way it should be. And if you promise to wear the MAGA hat, you should wear the MAGA hat, right? Because Trump did the thing that he said he was going to do. And it's a beautiful thing, by the way. We're also going to be seeing a beautiful thing today as Trump awards the Presidential Medal of Freedom to Charlie Kirk posthumously. You know my friend Tyler Boyer. He's probably the oldest arch ally of Charlie. He built so much with Charlie. He was like employee number 1 at Turning Point, and he's just the backbone of so much that Charlie built. He was on Fox and Friends today to sort of highlight and set the narrative of what the day is going to be. But let's read the top line here. Trump announced the day that Kirk died, said that he would be awarding Kirk the Presidential Medal of Freedom, and he hailed Turning Point's founder as a giant of his generation. The ceremony comes as Trump returned back from Washington in the early hours of Tuesday morning from a trip to the Middle East to celebrate the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. October 14th is Charlie Kirk's birthday. He would have turned 32 today. The House and the Senate previously approved a resolution to mark the date as a national day of remembrance. Trump said on a Friday, and please grab my tweet about Charlie, please, from this morning. Trump said last Friday that he was coming back from overseas for Kirk, a friend of mine and a good friend to all of us. It's a great honor, Trump said, of the award Erica, his beautiful wife, is going to be here, and a lot of people are going to be here. I will be one of them. The president and Erica Kirk shared a heartfelt moment on stage with Kirk's memorial service in Arizona. Tens of thousands of people gathered to pay tribute to Charlie, many from inside of the administration. Ladies and gentlemen, my message to Charlie from this morning. I'm still looking up to you, brother. What's heaven like, dude? What is heaven like? He was always a lot taller than me. Although I do need to work on my posture. But always looking up. Charlie probably 3 or 4 inches taller than me. Yep. What's heaven like, dude? I don't know. Maybe one of these days we're, well, not maybe. One of these days we're all going to find out. And ladies and gentlemen, I hope and pray that if you heard our Eric Trump segments, that you yourself are right with the Lord. In order to ensure that, in our own humble way, we have a verse of the day. And it is a beautiful one today, John 3:16, of course. For God so loved the world that he gave his only son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have eternal life. That is exactly the verse that will save President Trump, and that will save all of humanity, and carry that forward today. And let that be something that carries you through to the Charlie Kirk Memorial. We'll be live for that, and I'll be live in the White House, and we'll be posting what we think is appropriate, obviously. We know that there's going to be a lot of friends there, and we look forward to it. I believe it will be a beautiful moment. And so be uplifted today as we carry on the mission, and most importantly, as we go out to win. And know this, in the end, best part about being a Christian is you do win, actually. Isn't that awesome? It's your boy Benny, live from DC. See ya.
Now come the days of the King.
Truth gon' be faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. From the speeches to debates, Benny sharp like a blade, cutting through the lies, watch the truth cascade. With the warrior's heart, this man never fades. You know it's prime time when Benny invades. From saving the nation to stories untold, the Benny Show's a storm, see the truth unfold. Stay in the loop, let freedom take hold. Salting all the libs, soul never sold. It's the Benny Show, where the truth gon' be. Faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. Liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. From the speeches to debates, Benny sharp like a blade, cutting through the lies, watch the truth cascade. With the warrior's heart, this man never fades. You know it's prime time when Benny invades. From saving the nation to stories untold, the Benny Show's a storm, see the truth unfold. Stay in the loop, let freedom take hold. Salting all the libs, soul never sold. It's the Benny Show, where the truth gon' be. Faith and freedom on your TV screen. Stand up strong, battle through the night. The Benny Show's here, bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light. Bringing liberty to light.